Hello everyone. Nice to see you on my channel, Touching Stories. The story I'm going to tell you today is pure, true, brutal, and kind. It is true that all the bad things that happen in life happen for a reason. It is said that we can appreciate the good things when we get them. I wish you an enjoyable watching time. Julie was losing small expensive figurines over the white marble fireplace. When a loud bow was heard above the spirit, a girl jumped in fright on the spot and almost dropped one of the insanely expensive things from her hands. Margaret. She jokingly waved a towel at her friend. And if she had been broken in life, would she not have paid? Oh, come on, Mom didn't notice the loss of this rubbish for so much. I doubt that she remembers each one in the eyes. The bright girl chewed the gum, dismissed. So today is your birthday. Dad let you go early? What are your plans for the evening? How are you going to celebrate? Julie noticed that Margaret's eyes lit up with shameful fire. Don't even know. I thought to buy a cake and my mother to visit in the hospital, and then sleep. I rarely visit her. She is offended. We will do this. The daughter of the owner of the house began importantly. You finish here quickly to visit your mother and describe to me. I will pick you up. Need to go shopping. Why did you suddenly have fewer friends? Julie smiled. No, fool. Let's go to the club. I'll arrange a real holiday for you, but first, she meticulously looked at the maid in a comfortable black suit without traces of makeup on her face. Let's put you in order. Julie looked doubtfully at her friend. She and the club. A long time ago in my student years, I went there only a couple of times for a student's day and at graduation, and I didn't find anything attractive in drunken youth. But the establishments in which Margaret usually rested were an order of magnitude higher than their stuffy eateries. She could be relied upon. Julie worked at the Anderson home for just over a year. The girl graduated from college, having mastered an unnecessary specialty. Therefore, after graduation, the issue of employment became acute. She could not afford higher education. The girl was raised only by her mother, Isabella. She knew nothing about her father, and the woman was not particularly willing to answer questions of interest to her daughter. She had a hard time. She took on any job just to save a modest two-room apartment in need of the hands of an experienced master, and raise Julie a decent girl. University, she went only to the paid department. But education was expensive, so I had to limit myself to a college diploma. Education solves far from everything when it comes to finding a job. Isabella, daughter. If you are ready to work and learn new things, you will be accepted more willingly than a lazy person with a diploma from the best institute. And she didn't trust her mother. She did not spare herself and sent out resumes in response to an advertisement for which they were looking for hard manual laborers. And the work of a maid did not bother the girl at all. The firm was very decent, and its clients were wealthy people who fulfilled all the requirements of the contract. At first, Julie was very tired putting things in order in the huge house of Robert Anderson, but soon got used to it. Yes, and with Margaret, they were the same age, and quickly found a common language. The girl has already graduated from the magistracy, although almost did not appear in pairs. Her father was not strict with her, but some of his requirements were mandatory. The man turned a blind eye to the rest and allowed the only child to have plenty of fun. Margaret was powerful. She playfully managed with the guys, not having a permanent relationship. I drank a lot. Constantly disappeared at secular parties. She spent her father's money without looking back, and everything was forgiven her. After all, her behavior has never discredited the name of the family. Julie Margaret liked it. They always found common themes and reasons to laugh. But the girl understood the daughter of a rich man would hardly ever treat her as an equal, only if she did not jump out successfully in marriage. With Isabella, the tired daughter did not stay long. In recent years, the mother's heart began to often remind of itself, so she was examined from time to time. The last of them showed that she needed a serious, expensive operation. It took the mayor and his wife about 2. 0 to go shopping. Money from the credit card of Robert's daughter flew away every minute, but it was worth it. Girlfriends showed up at the club in Margaret's chick silver car, which her father bought her for her last birthday. As soon as they appeared in the spacious hall and walked to the bar, several pairs of eyes immediately followed them with interested glances. Julie was not used to such attention, and to such revealing clothes, too. She looked different that evening. She even had her makeup done by her friend's personal stylist. If someone comes up, "Look at me," advised Margaret. "I can smell Alphonse a mile away, and you baby look like 1,000,000. If you nodded, we get to know each other. Good guys come across here too. Suddenly you'll be lucky too. You are awesome, you deserve a good life." "I don't know what to say at all." Julie blushed. "I'm not from high society. They will immediately see a simpleton in me." But the girl was worried in vain. After a few compliments, she believed in her attractiveness. But no one was stubbornly acquainted. The evening was fun. Julie even drank a couple of alcoholic cocktails, which almost could not but her at once. But Margaret preferred stronger drinks. While still in the car, she quarreled with one of her friends and tried to distract herself from bad thoughts. When the employee of the club's the parking lot drove her car, the girl said that she could manage it herself. Julie was frightened outright. "You can hardly stand on your own feet, or yourself, or others. Give me the keys," she demanded. But the girlfriend did not understand any arguments. "Sit down, come on, or do you want to stay here?" The girls argued for several minutes, but to no avail. Julie decided that she would not take a taxi, but would go with Margaret. Make sure she gets to the whole house. Everything happened too fast. Margaret dispersed despite the screams nearby and flew out of the corner, knocking down a young man at a pedestrian crossing. She stopped abruptly, a little more sober from the realization of what happened. "You! Did you hit someone?" Julie screamed, about to get out of the car. But she roared again and rushed forward. The girl did not sleep all night, did not find a place for herself. Margaret brought her to her place and told her father everything. Robert took the phones from both and ordered them to be silent. There was no news until dawn. Margaret fell asleep on the couch. It had too much alcohol in it. But Julie couldn't close her eyes. They just drove away, leaving a man to die on the pavement. There was blood. Most likely he did not survive. The girls, more than anything in the world, wanted to be next to their mother so that she would comfort her, to promise that everything would be fine and that it was all a bad dream. Robert entered the room when it was already light outside the window. Julie jumped up and pushed a friend. "The situation is not easy." With a heavy sigh, the man said, "Julie, I have a big request for you. You can refuse, but first I will listen. As you know, I'm going to run for mayor. I don't care about the fuss right now. Something similar would have happened to Margaret sooner or later. This is my omission. I ask you one thing to take suspicion away from our family. Take the blame." With Julie, she wanted to be outraged, but she couldn't find the words. Robert continued, "Don't be afraid. You will be given a deadline. Small, perhaps even conditional. Do you have a license, and let's say you sat in Margaret's seat and she lent you a car on your birthday? You don't have any other offenses. That guy is now in the hospital. The incident is not particularly serious. In addition, we will not remain in debt. I'm paying for your mother's surgery. She has a sick heart. She will receive the best care in the future for any health problems. Let him turn to me. I take care of everything." "Robert, it's not even time to think." The girl was confused. For her, such an accident was not a trifle. She would never dare to endanger a person's life. But it is clear that the rich are different. Isabella really needed the urgent intervention of doctors. And the girl did not want to lose her mother because she did not know other relatives. On the same day, Julie voluntarily came to the police station and confessed her guilt. She was scared, but she hoped that Robert would support her, as he had promised, and the trial would not be difficult. But already on the first day of the investigation, horrifying facts were revealed. "So how did he die?" the girl asked in a colorless voice, having learned from the investigator that the victim in the accident died on the spot. Margaret's father lied to her. He knew that she would not agree to his deal if she knew the whole truth. Julie's heart skipped a beat. She knew that this was the end. The investigation went quickly. Robert did help. He hired a bad lawyer and did not leave a state one who would not even try in such an obvious case. Through his efforts, the girl received 4 years in prison. It seemed like the world had collapsed. She did not contact her mother, did not know how to tell everything. I did not want to worry her before the operation, which might not have taken place with the next heart attack. Life behind bars was hard, frightening. Julie couldn't sleep at first. Everyone was afraid that something would happen to her, that someone would decide to mock her, mutilate her. Everything was incomprehensible, amenable to others, completely different logic. To survive, we had to adapt quickly. The guards were also different. Someone enjoyed their work and did not pay attention to the screams of the prisoners during the showdown in the dark purchases of the colonies. Others immediately came to the rescue and did not encourage disorder. Among the latter, Jack stood out. The man was in his early 30s. He was married and looked decent enough. I sincerely sympathized with the many women who found themselves in such a terrible place. Many thought how he, with such a good heart, found himself among the guards. But the answer was simple. Father-in-law added, he was the head of the prison, so he was used to people obeying him. This extended to his family as well. Julie herself did not notice how she began to look at the attractive Jack for a long time. And he is on it. In an atmosphere of betrayal and fear, the girl wanted to have at least some kind of support, trust someone. She was lucky with her cellmate. The woman happened did not offend, but she would not help just like that. But Jack was different. With each passing day, the tension between them grew. The girl did not know what it could result in. She did not know if she dared to dream of a married man and reveal her sympathy to him. Once he was on guard for her while working in a laundry in a warehouse for household chemicals. Only Julie remained. "Just be quiet," the man said, turning her around and pressing her against the wall. Their first kiss was like a breath of fresh air. The girl felt alive for a moment. Hope arose inside her for the future, that in this place she could love. Their dates passed quickly in complete secrecy, but keeping a secret in the colony was not so easy. There were eyes and ears everywhere, ready to report any event to the right people. Rumors about Julie and Jack's romance began to spread among both prisoners and escorts. The young woman began to pursue social jokes, chuckles, sidelong glances. Some of the women frankly ridiculed her affection for a man. Others envied, others regretted. "You're a fool, Julie. He's using you here with many. There's only your civilized, shared more than one prisoner. Others are not so lucky. Then goes with, and it happens that with fractures. So you be careful with your Romeo, not Beric. And then you never know will show their bestial nature." Julie did not defend her lover. The less others knew about them, the better. In addition, the day before, Jack had asked her to take care of herself. After all, people were chatting, and the head of the prison, most likely, already knew that his son-in-law and replacement. Through a dream, the wife heard the ringing of a key from the current click to the door of her cell. She immediately jumped up. 2 people approached her. The woman did not even have time to utter a word. She was gagged, tied up, and dragged into the shower. One sink was full of water. Realizing what would happen next, Julie began to mumble and struggle. But the man's hands held tight. Later, she did not tell anyone about what she had experienced that night. She thought she was saying goodbye to life. "Greetings from your boss." One of the guards was preparing from the threshold throwing a barely alive woman back into the cell. Jack missed his next shift and several others. Julie waited for his appearance with bated breath, but soon realized that in vain. Her lover will never return. It turned out that not only she was punished for the connection, Jack was transferred to the men's colony. More news about the man-wife did not receive. For the past 3 weeks, Julie has been having bad mornings. She did not understand what was happening to her until the cellmate explained with a smirk that she was pregnant. The woman managed to get to the medical center. There she was examined and confirmed that the fetus has been developing for the 3rd month. "Well, you are a lucky girl," the cellmate told his wife. "And what is the success here?" The young woman asked, tirelessly wiping her tears, realizing that her terrible life had become even worse. Which one is her mother? How will she raise the child? What if they take him away? I haven't heard of such a thing. Children imprisoned after birth were taken to orphanages. They could be adopted by complete strangers. The mothers never met their children again. They'll probably let you out. In this, the boss is soft.
Therefore, behave calmly. Do not be insolent to anyone.
And so it happened. Less than 2 weeks later, Julie found herself outside the gates of the colony with a package in her hands and a void in her head under a possible October sky. The first thing she wanted to do was visit her mother for the 2 years that the young woman spent in captivity. She never dared to confess everything. Margaret once sent a package with various treats, which she did not share. She sat and assured that Isabella was fine. The first operation was successful, but the woman is still under the supervision of doctors. The support of her mother gave Julie hope. She knew that now they would be very tight. After all, the stigma of a former convict will remain on her all her life. And they are not used to be trusted. You can't prove to anyone that it wasn't Julie's fault. They will not listen and respect, too. The woman arrived at the old address with excitement in her chest, opened the door with her key, and immediately froze. The smell inside was musty, as if it hadn't been ventilated for a long time. Everything lay in its place, as it had a few years ago, as if there was no one. During this time, panic no longer grew in my chest. How? Where is Mum? Why has nothing changed? She called the hospital, dialing the number from memory. I want to talk to Isabella's doctor. The girl in the 307th ward does not have a patient with that name, the administrator stated confidently. Maybe you were wrong. Tell me the full details. I'll look on the computer. Your mother could have been transferred to another room. Yes, thank you. Julia hastily replied. Sorry. The other end of the line said carefully, I'm sorry, but Isabella died on June 13th. The woman did not listen further. She could not stand on her feet and slowly slid down the wall. Mom was gone for over a year. She didn't know. She didn't know. That doesn't happen. After all, the life of a loved one cannot be cut short so unfairly. At that time, Julie only noticed Jack began to secretly meet with him, opened her soul to him. She gave him affection and felt that she lives here in the wild. Her poor mother, abandoned as an only child, died in the hospital. After all, she was scared. She thought she had been abandoned. How so? Julie had to fiddle with calls to find out exactly where Isabella was buried. Not believing what was happening, she went to the cemetery. And even looking at a black and white photo of a young mother, she could not recognize reality. A lonely, heartbroken woman sat for several hours at her mother's grave, asking her for forgiveness. She lost hope again. The new life stage did not spare Julie. She tried to find work, but she was refused everywhere. Former convict and even with a stomach. They didn't inspire confidence. Many beat me, called me names unfairly, but everything had to be endured. The young woman was so lost that only a thought and not born daughters gave her strength and meaning to continue to live. She tried to find Jack on social networks, let him know that she was carrying his child, but a long search yielded no results. New failures. They seemed to follow Julie at every turn, and there would be no end to them. Despite the efforts of the guards on that terrible night, Stacey was born completely healthy for the first time, taking her in the arms of her wife. She experienced an indescribable and previously unfamiliar feeling. She realized that she would never leave this baby and grow her happy, no matter what it cost her. There were no more men in my wife's life. She did not accept courtship, did not start empty intrigues. She devoted all her time to the child. For several years, she had been working as a technician at a small enterprise. She received little, barely enough to make ends meet, but the work did not become less from this. The authorities were no longer grumbling. You were nagging all the time. Something you were at home. Set new deadlines for cleaning each industrial and office space. The woman did not complain. She worked with clenched teeth. After all, no one else dared to deal with the former prisoner. Julie had enough trouble. Many neighbors turned away from her after the story with the colony, despite the fact that they knew Isabella long before the birth of her daughter. Neither his wife nor her mother, never his wife nor her mother, never refused help. And they didn't say a bad word. But people didn't care. They cast sidelong glances, rumbled something under their breath. Sometimes they openly expressed their dislike. The woman got used to it and was no longer offended. People are people. They always need an outcast, a guilty one who can be discussed. With the colony, she hadn't endured so much, and these children's antics. But there were also good people surrounded by Julie. An elderly neighbor downstairs often looked after Stacey. If her mother needed to urgently leave on business, she invited her to visit. She talked about her family, which had long forgotten their grandmothers and lived in the capital. They needed each other. "Sophie, you help us so much," Julie sighed at times, almost crying from being treated kindly. "What are you, dear? Without you, I would have died of boredom among these 0 years," Granny answered menacingly. "Look how they look askance at you. I hate to even greet them. Not like drinking." Life went on. Julie was spinning like a squirrel in a wheel, completely disregarding her own needs. She had long forgotten what it was like to like herself, like men. Spend some money not on something useful for the home, but for your own pleasure. "Oh, you don't have enough, good man." Sophie shook her head. "Such a person would solve your problems in an instant." "Where can I get it?" Julie answered, without much interest in this topic. She did not think to establish a personal life. "Where is she?" "Yes, and you are good. Launched myself." "Here." The grandmother took out from the pocket of an old knitted sweater and a few bills. "She saved from retirement. I wanted to please you. Buy yourself something beautiful. Not milk or buckwheat, but clothes." "What are you, Sophie?" the woman gasped. "Take it and take it." In addition to the main work at the enterprise, Julie managed to find part-time jobs. In her free time, she got up to sew from scratch or experience clothes for people. Of course, for those who had never heard of her. She also worked in a local coffee delivery service, whose couriers refused to travel to unsafe areas. Julie didn't feel sorry for herself at all. All her thoughts were occupied with how to save an extra penny. Despite the terrible employment, the woman did not forget to pay attention to the development of her daughter. Stacey grew up in the caress of her mother, never raised her hand to her. In addition, the girl grasped new knowledge on the fly and coped with some tasks even before entering school. She rushed to everything new, was not lazy, and was distinguished by perseverance. However, the first successes in studies were surprising. Julie was astounded to see her daughter's diary for grades no higher than C's. She did not understand how a teacher of first graders could be so cruel as to in no way pull a child out of failures, but drown him in them. Each homework she understood, overtook, and could vouch for each of her answers. But something strange happened at school. Once again, when Stacey returned in tears, refusing to show her mother the diary, Julie decided that it was worth meeting with Rebecca. She was a young teacher who had just graduated from a pedagogical university. She studied in a large city and returned from there, not with the same wiretap that could be knocked at 6. Julie looked into the office. Julie Solomity, Stacey's mom. Of course, come on. The teacher slammed the magazine shut and looked attentively at the parent who had come. Julie immediately noticed her long manicured nails and gold rings. I've wanted to talk to you for a long time. It's good that you took the time to come by. Excellent. Stacey's mom felt relieved from the heart. She thought there had been some misunderstanding. I would like to understand in what format the classes are held and how the children receive grades. Stacey is very vulnerable, gets upset because of bad scores. At home, she tries her best and ready for every lesson. When I check her, she answers everything without hesitation. She prints clean letters neatly. I don't understand. Maybe something in the class scares her public answers. Maybe, Rebecca sighed. She clearly saw the snag of Stacey's academic performance in something else. Julie, the teacher leaned closer. I want you to understand me correctly. For the needs of the class, you donate irregularly. You often have difficulty with this. But besides this, I appreciate in parents the care of their children. If they care about their child, then I care. Over the past 6 months, thanks to the assistance of several dads and moms, I got this. The girl picked up the latest model of an expensive phone from the table. School is a cruel place. I can't look after your child. I just can't do it all the time. I have 23 of them. I understand you are a single mother. It's hard for you, but for whom is it easy? You to me. I to you. The scheme is clear. For a while, Julie sat completely overwhelmed by what she had heard. She was hoping for a completely different conversation. Opposite her sat an impudent underage blackmailer. So it turns out that she's punished on the wall just like that, deliberately humiliated because of the small salary of the mother. The more the woman thought about it, the more anger flared up in her. You know what, she said, you are lucky that I entered here without a voice recorder. You are a disgrace to your profession. With these words, Julie left the school. She knew that only made the situation worse. If she could, she would turn in that stupid money. But she didn't have any. The woman was right. Rebecca did not forget her answers. The girl hated both poverty and those who wore their plight like expensive clothes. She wanted to humiliate Stacey's mom, to find out anything about her. After all, every person has skeletons in the closet. The discovered information even exceeded all the expectations of the curious teacher. Like Julie served her term and gave birth to her daughter from the escort, she decided to hold off on what she had learned until the right moment. Until then, Stacey continued to get the hateful D's and C's and started sobbing right in the classroom. Many children began to tease her. From this, the girl was even more upset. Seeing the suffering of her daughter, Julie was going crazy. She wanted to cry with her, but she couldn't show her despair to Stacey. Be patient, my dear, she reassured her daughter when she sat down on her knees. Be patient, I will soon deal with this. I know that you are my smart girl, that you know any subject with 5+. Let the diary be completely different. But I believe in your knowledge, and you believe whoever said anything. Mommy, I'm so offended. Stacey sobbed, clinging to the woman's dressing gown, and she furtively brushed away a tear. She knew early on the injustice of life and was not ready for it. Mom was an adult, and her girl was only 7, and she was already rotten for nothing. In the school chat, Rebecca announced a parent. Julie decided that this was her chance to connect not only with the elementary teacher, but also with other parents. She thought that not everyone had the means to give gifts to the class teacher for no reason, and it made sense to raise this issue in public. Suddenly, those who give bribes would be ashamed. Hardly rushing from work, Julie quickly rushed home and changed into the only decent trousers and shirt, so as not to fall into the dirt on her face, and even put on a little makeup. Foundation couldn't hide the dark bags under my eyes. The woman's face showed exhaustion. Whatever it was, I had to go to the meeting. Julie was sure she hadn't been late, but the office door was open and loud. Discussions could be heard behind it. The woman specifically left early to make a good impression on other moms. Coming closer, she did not knock, but listened. Rebecca. And for a long time, my son has been sitting with this Stacey. And if she's some kind of abnormal, suddenly she will harm him. A frightened female voice sounded. The girl definitely has antisocial tendencies. It is important, said another. She reacts to everything aggressively. She has no friends. She studies worse than ever. This issue needs to be addressed urgently. Thank you for warning us, Rebecca, replied the third mother. We have the right to know what to expect from this family if the mother has served time. Yes, she also gave birth to an escort. What to expect from a child? The girl, of course, did not choose her parents. But it's such a mess. Julie's face burned with anger. She was offended, but she was not going to just listen to insults. Let them tell her everything to her face. When she abruptly opened the door and appeared on the threshold of the office, those present gasped. You yourself just said that my daughter had nothing to do with it. Do you want to gossip about someone? Please let it be me, but don't you dare touch my daughter. The woman spoke in one breath. She addressed everyone, running her eyes from one person to another, remembering no one. She could have said a lot of things, but she stopped herself in time. So, we have a mutual dislike, the plump woman said calmly, speaking about inappropriate behavior. On the wall of your girl is the road to the boarding school. I'm not saying this out of malice, understand, but she has no place among our children. Exactly. Another excited woman supported. Suddenly your crappy genes were transferred to her. He will start climbing on someone else's portfolio, stealing like a mother. Or why were you jailed? For murder. Julie escaped her lips. All these important mothers mocked her without showing the slightest sympathy. It was they who were antisocial. They were nasty and obnoxious. The woman ran straight down the corridor in order to leave this cruel place as soon as possible from the tears that set her face. She did not see anything in front of her and right at the stairs ran into someone. Julie didn't know he was a tall, handsome man in a business suit. In front of her is the new principal of the school. The man appeared to be not much older than her. At 34, he already held an important post, and not every colleague of his could boast of this. What's wrong with you? Why are you crying like that? He asked, gently touching Julie's shoulder. His look, a pleasant perfume and a courageous figure, forced the woman to lay everything out to him as it is without hesitation. From the fact that next to such a man, there was a sense of security. Nick was shocked by the news. Bribes under my nose and even persecution of a child, he said sternly. Don't worry, I'll figure it out. I'm a new director in the position for less than a month. Therefore, while getting used to the team and not to me, I'm watching for now. They look like decent people, but they do the unthinkable. Thank you very much. I didn't know how to deal with them. My girl comes home from school crying every day and my heart breaks, The next day, Rebecca was called back to the principal's office. From the very morning, the young teacher was tormented by an unpleasant foreboding. Yesterday's incident with Stacey Salamati's mother was still fresh in her memory. From such a mother who publicly announced the murder, one could expect anything. Here, as long as I run the school, this will not happen again. Clearly, this is a case. Do you want half of the teaching staff? And at the same time, I was taken out of the school in handcuffs in front of the students. Are you looking for such glory? Raging Nick. No, I'm sorry. I didn't finish. The man threw sternly. Your diploma from the capital does not matter here. If you deliberately flunk students, your academic performance is lame, you thought about it. What is your lag percentage? I'm expecting a report with student grades in a week. and I hope to see the real results of Stacey. Solomati there humiliated Rebecca. I understood the director's position, but harbored a fierce resentment towards Julie. She didn't think the women would have the guts to complain to the headmaster in particular. Second week, Stacey returned from the lessons with a smile and proudly presented to her mother. Diary, my, you're smart. I could not help but rejoice. Julie kissing her daughter on the forehead. You see, now you are being appreciated. You will outdo everyone in this class. You will come out with an excellent student. Julie's happiness knew no bounds. After work, knowing that someone as responsible as Nick would probably stay up late at school, she decided to pay him a visit and thank him in person. The woman took homemade pies with cabbage and meat with her. The director did not have a ring on his finger. This means that no one spoiled him with delicacies at home, and a rare man knew how to mess with pastries. Nick was flattered by Julie's visit, and the gift was especially delighted. You're just a craftswoman. He smiled at the stove. One pie after another with a cup of tea. I have not eaten such. Years 100. Eat, eat. If you like it, I'll bake it again. After a brief conversation, Nick offered to walk her home. Communication along the way was easy. Julie had already forgotten how to behave with a man, especially one as attractive as he was. She was sure that Nick did not suffer from the lack of fans, surely bathed in the attention of the opposite sex. One can only dream of such a life partner. Weeks have passed. Nick made himself known regularly, met Julie from work, drove to a cafe. Sometimes he came to visit and could help with small men's work in the apartment. Next to him, Julie stopped worrying and felt attractive, even in home clothes with flour on his face. Nick, don't get me wrong. I like you very much, but I have a daughter. I can't get carried away with someone if it's not serious. Julie confessed her fears to him. I have a very difficult fate. One day I'll tell you, but I don't know if you'll accept me like this. Who hasn't had problems? Calmly answered the man. I have a failed marriage behind me. We parted badly. For a long time I could not decide on a new relationship. I thought I wouldn't feel anything special for any woman. And then I met you. Julie Nick's relationship developed slowly. They were gentle. Carefully, the couple gradually recognized each other without pressing or demanding anything. With Stacey, the man owned well. She was glad to talk to someone new because the neighbors were suspicious of her family. And my mother had almost no friends left. The woman enjoyed every meeting with Nick, and every time she lost her head from his gentle touches. She could not believe that fate was favorable to her and gave such a man. The woman was so immersed in the development of her new relationship that she forgot about the possible threat from the offended Rebecca. The girl, all this time, had a plan of revenge in her head. Not only did Julie beat her around her finger, forcing her to lose additional income under the threat of dismissal, she also twisted the headmaster, whom the teacher herself laid eyes on. She thought she had the advantage of being young and well-groomed without a family or a terrible past, and also a teacher. But no matter how hard Rebecca tried, Nick didn't even look in her direction. She kept breaking her head. How did Julie fail to get his attention? Is it with their big, sad eyes? And then I realized how to take revenge. That day passed as usual. Nick did not suspect that he would soon be pulled out to the Office of School Affairs with a stern call because of the fact that he had an anonymous complaint. Secret connection with the mother of one of the students. The chairman of the disciplinary commission read out the accusation: blackmail, bribery. Nick, do you understand what you're accused of? The informer wrote that he learned that Julie Solomati, who had previously served time in the colony, provided you with intimate services in exchange for the fact that her daughter would stop bullying at school. By threatening to fire you, you forced Julie's daughter's homeroom teacher to deliberately lower her grades in order to lure a woman into bonding with you. For a teacher, this is unforgivable behavior and even criminally punishable. What were you thinking? You have disgraced the entire education system because of people like you. Nowadays, the teaching profession is no longer so respected. Nick wanted to justify himself, but he couldn't get a word in. This whole ridiculous meeting was set up. There was not a word of truth in the anonymous letter. More man unsettled that it was in the face of the commission, that he learned Julie's secret. Former prisoners, if it were any other woman, he would turn a blind eye to a prison term. But he had special claims to his beloved. By decision of the disciplinary commission, Nick was removed from his post and dismissed in disgrace from the school. He left the building under the phantom, did not shock their colleagues, who could not suspect this decent fair man of the blackmailer. History has long been discussed both in school and outside, and Rebecca, who retained her position as a teacher, was able to take up bribery again. It's all lies. They couldn't fire you. You must write a counter, complaint to the commission, and punish all those who slandered your name. I even suspect who the instigator of all this is. I read Julie walking around her apartment. She wanted to support her lover to give him hope for justice. Only he looked very gloomy. Julie, sit down. No. And now it is important, Nick said tiredly. The fact that you served time, I learned not from you, from the commission. But that's not all. Sorry. The man didn't let Julie finish. Jack Donovan, the escort you bonded with in prison and gave birth to Stacey. My own younger brother. It was clear from Julie's expression that she was not ready to believe this news. But Nick did not spare her. And further, he is no longer alive. When he was transferred to the men's colony, there was a riot of prisoners. In the general confusion, they beat him, and he was brutally beaten for nothing. And if he had not contacted you, he would have remained in the same place and would have been alive. Knowing this, I can't be with you. You have no idea how angry I am. The man's eyes burned with anger. Julie, it's getting uncomfortable. He was stunned to learn that Jack had died a terrible death. But the anger in the words of the beloved, like a knife cut through the heart. Am I to blame? Do you want me alone to be responsible for this? I was wrongfully convicted of murder. I lived through all this hell, even though I didn't deserve it. And Jack, he was the only one who supported me. Don't talk about him, shouted Nick. Julie covered her face with her hands and began to cry. She wished she could, but she couldn't. Couldn't stand the man's attitude. Stacey was visiting Sophie, and the woman was reassured that her daughter did not witness their quarrel. She didn't know what to say. In the eyes of her lover, she was a villain. Julie did not tolerate Nick's neglect and asked him to leave. They parted ways without deciding anything. After the men were fired, the whole neighborhood was gossip about their wrong romance. Being together seemed like a big mistake. Both needed time to come to terms with the past and forgive each other. The woman decided that this was the end. She will not roll at her feet and beg for forgiveness. She had Stacey, the only person for whom it was worth living on. Despite Julie encouraging herself and looking to the future with hope, breaking up with Nick hit her hard. She only just felt loved, desired, attractive. She just began to feel someone else's care. She began to make plans in her thoughts, fantasize about marriage and what she could give her beloved child to her beloved child to her beloved. Now she scolded herself for all this stupidity, thinking that she had never been lucky in anything. Could it be different this time? Stacey noticed a change in her mother's behavior. She again became tired, secretive. When meeting with Nick, she no longer smiled, not well. In front of the mirror, she stopped painting her lips. And at night, the girl heard her crying in her bedroom. "Do you miss Uncle Nick?" Stacey asked Mom. "No, honey, it's all right. I just sometimes remember." The woman waved, knowing that she should talk about a man. "I think he misses you too. Grandma Sophie said that he looks at you in a special way. He loves you." Julie also grieved over his ruined relationship, never ceasing to lament that she was being pursued by a black streak. But soon there were new reasons for unrest. On the way up to the third floor with her daughter, she noticed that Stacey was short of breath, which was strange for an energetic 8-year-old child. Julie herself did not have time to resist, rising to the apartment. Later, she began to notice other oddities in the girl. And Julie got a call from the school saying that Stacey had fainted in gym class. Leaving everything, the woman broke into an educational institution and found her daughter in the cabinet. What with her? Did she hurt something? Julie immediately began to examine his child, looking into her eyes. "I can't say what caused the fainting," the nurse answered calmly, "but I advise you to go to the hospital about the myocardium. Have you noticed something like this in her?" "No, I fainted for the first time, but shortness of breath has recently appeared." The next day, Julie and Stacey made an appointment with a cardiologist and drove to the clinic. A doctor's consultation and the necessary tests forced the woman to spend money. She didn't take much money. She was afraid that she would not be able to provide a complete examination on the walls. "Wait for me in the corridor and don't go anywhere," Julie said to his daughter. "Well," summed up the doctor, left alone with her, "your daughter has a heart defect." Hearing this, Julie nearly fainted. When will it end? And now what? Is it curable? I can say that the case is not the worst. Stacey needs surgery to figure out which direction to go. We will need to perform the first operation and develop a treatment strategy. Julie didn't picture her poor little daughter on the operating table with her chest hidden, and she felt dizzy again. From a conversation with the cardiologist, she realized that it was hopeless on the wall. She can be saved. Another question is, when is the best time to have the operation? It was possible to wait for the planned one in a few months, or it was possible to lay out a tidy sum and arrange everything next week. Julie didn't want to risk Stacey's life. She had no idea where to get the money, but she knew that she would do everything necessary to make the operation happen soon. She got home in complete oblivion. She didn't even have the strength to cry. Stacey understood that something bad had happened and did not go to her mother with question. There were no friends or relatives. It was not necessary to hope for someone's financial support. There was no choice left. She decided to seek help from Nick, whose voice had not been heard for more than 5 months. But here, too, she was disappointed. "I beg you, incantation, don't think about what happened between us." Desperate, Julie cried into the phone. "Help, then you can. I have no one else to turn to. If I lose Stacey as well, I won't be able to live. I put my hands on myself. Julie, I'm so sorry. It's sincere. I would help no matter what if I had that amount. After that scandal, I could no longer get a job in my specialty. That's where I'm doing part-time jobs. But you know that I'm with you. I don't leave you in trouble. I will try very hard to come up with something and invest in the operation, but not right away." After talking a little more, Julie hung up. She felt relieved already from the fact that she was able to speak out to him and not start a new quarrel. "Baby," Sophie sighed when I visited her, not knowing what the punishment was. The woman answered humbly, "I do not know where I was so guilty and where now to seek forgiveness. I can't leave Stacey. I don't even know where to get the money. Some people owe me very much." Julie spoke through clenched teeth, remembering who got her in jail. Only they were vile, and they didn't keep their word. The decision to contact Andersons was not easy for a woman. She endured all the blows of fate steadfastly, even if it was unfair. She moved forward relentlessly. Having learned about the death of her mother, having experienced betrayal from a wealthy family, she did not come to them with a scandal, did not interfere with the political career of Robert, who at that time was the mayor. But she could tell a lot of interesting things. If only there was a reinvestigation. It is likely that the prosecutor's office would have found the necessary witness to clear the name of her daughter, but she did not seek this. However, now her daughter's life was at stake. It was worth forgetting about pride and coming for your own. Sitting in the colony, Julie often imagined meeting with a former friend and her father, but now crossing a luxurious lawn to the heavy doors of the house. There was no fear, no excitement, no gratitude. Life has not changed the naive and sympathetic girl who was no longer there before. Now she knew the whole idea of taking the blame had been a terrible mistake. With her, the collapse of her life began. In the hall, Julie was met by a new maid and taken to Margaret. And now the women who used to be so friendly looked at each other with curiosity. Margaret has changed a lot. It was clear that she put a lot of money into her appearance. Next to her, the ex-girlfriend looked simply ridiculous in her old snowy clothes. "What an unexpected visit," said the mistress of the house, in a normal, cheerful tone. "Have a seat, and since you've already arrived, I'd say I'm glad to meet you. Only this is not so," Jewel answered sternly. But she sat down on the sofa. "It's time to pay off your debts. I've been silent for too long, and you are obviously not masters of your word." Margaret, surprised, arched a light-dyed eyebrow and smiled. "Don't put your finger in your mouth. I see life behind bars has only benefited." "Not funny. Where is your father? I need to talk to him." "Dad's in the office." "I'll give you the address. I don't know if you can get anything from him. He has recently become so soon all the money regrets." After receiving the business card, Julie stood up and looked around. The house was still clean and luxurious. Only the people in it lived miserable and rotten. She sighed. "How can you sleep at night? You're a killer." The woman walked away, barely restraining herself so as not to upset Margaret. The familiar smirk never left her eyes. Does she really care? Is there no conscience remorse? Julie wanted to smash everything in the mansion, drop every figurine she had previously dusted carefully, paint every picture of a famous artist, to destroy the well-being of this worthless family. She suffered so much because of them. They lived happily ever after, never thinking about an innocent girl whose life was broken. Once sending her a parcel did not fulfill the promise of treating her mother. Shameless liars. A woman burst into Robert's office. From them, the secretary, growing in a nasty voice, rebuilt an office in the city center, started a new business without looking back. It is hard to imagine that once a woman trusted this scoundrel. When he saw Julie's angry face, he immediately knew that this would not end well. In addition, on a small, uncomfortable sofa, covered in natural swede, sat a portly man in an expensive suit with whom Margaret's father was about to conclude a surprisingly lucrative contract. In front of him, Robert did not want to embarrass himself. In appearance, he was a little less than 60. With undisguised surprise, he looked at the out-of-breath intruder. "What the hell did you let her in?" Robert shouted to the bewildered secretary. She tried to drag Julie out of the office, but she couldn't. "Just touch it," the guest shouted at her. "How dare you come here and embarrass me in front of important people? It's time to repay debts." "Not afraid of the cries of the man," said Julie. "Otherwise everyone will know the truth, and he will like it very much. Get out of here, beggar. I will lock you up in jail. There's a boorish place for you." The man did not let up. Julie walked towards him without fear, with frightening confidence, pointing her index finger forward. "Only thanks to me. You are sitting here thanks to me. You were the mayor. Do you want to compete with me? Let's get the money I need next week." She left a sheet on the coffee table with the amount needed for the operation and rehabilitation. "I advise you not to cheat." The silent witness, having sorted out the drama of the condemnation, looked at Robert. As soon as Julie left the office, he rushed after her. "Wait, girl. I'm not one with him. I want to clarify what happened to you, Julie." He could not believe looking into familiar eyes opposite the oval face, eyebrows, eyes, lips. Everything about the young woman reminded him of a man from the past. "Forgive me for being impudent. I didn't want to look at you so frankly." The man lowered his eyes. The fact is that you very much remind me of one woman. You are remarkably similar, just one face. But it seems that they are clearly not in the mood for small talk. Julie, arms crossed over her chest, as if defending herself from a strange stranger, turned her head to the side. It was then that Adam noticed a mole on her neck. Can't be. You are definitely related. What was your mother's name? He asked hopefully. Now, it was Julie's turn to be amazed. Her mother had the same mole on her neck. Isabella's friends did not cease to be touched by the outward resemblance of mother and daughter. My mother's name was Isabella. She's been gone for 8 years now. God, I'm so sorry. Julie believed in the sincerity of the man's words. Let me treat you to dinner. I was about to eat myself. I would like to tell you one story, and you will tell me yours. It turned out that Adam and Isabella were very close in their youth. They fell in love with each other almost at first sight. The first serious feeling made the young people lose their heads. They didn't always think about caution. There were no special problems between the couple, but the grinding of characters was not easy. They often resented each other. We quarreled. After another misunderstanding, I was offered a job in another city, which at that time was very promising. I took this as a sign of fate that it was time to tie him up with Isabella. He left and never saw her again, although he often remembered. I had a wife, but she died early. They didn't have children. Adam told with some excitement. It was difficult to find me then. I think Isabella tried to tell me she was expecting a baby, but she didn't know the address. Don't be afraid of my words, Julie, but I think you are my daughter. What made you decide? The woman couldn't believe her ears. Although you took all the best from your beautiful mother, you got a smile and eye color from my blood. If you see a photo of my mother, then you will be convinced of everything. In a short time, Julie turned from an unfortunate orphan into a rich heiress. It turned out that Adam had a great influence in business and politics, and his word was higher than the word of Robert. Julie did not immediately believe that her life had suddenly changed. The father was sure of the relationship, but she insisted on a DNA test which confirmed all assumptions. Now don't get in the way, the man laughed, holding out his hands to his daughter. Thanks to his help, Stacey had a successful operation in the best clinic and provided post-operative care. The girl's life was no longer in danger. At Adam's urging, Julie and Stacey moved into his huge house. I have been living here for a long time and take up little space. Do whatever you want here. I'm always at work. You won't even notice me. Adam had an easy character, but there was a solid core inside, thanks to which he achieved success. With his daughter, he quickly developed a friendly relationship. And Stacey just adored her grandfather. Now a reliable, dear person has not appeared in life who will not betray and deceive. The woman tried to thank her father for all the good deeds that he had done for them. She herself put things in order at home, not accustomed to sitting idle, and was always eager to work. No, Adam said sternly. You won't be mopping floors in that creepy place anymore. Stacey now goes to a good school. Do you need to take care of her? Do you need to take care of her? Get educated if you want. You can afford it? Exactly. How did this not occur to me before? Not all life robotics can master a more worthy profession. Since Julie's life has changed dramatically, unnecessary chores have disappeared, time and money have appeared. The woman began to think more and more about Nick. They did not part very well, but during the time of illness, he supported her in any way he could and even offered some money. But fortunately, they were not required. Once, Julie nevertheless decided to meet with Nick and discuss everything in an adult way. They had enough time to understand what they want from each other. With the help of Adam, she found out where her lover is now working. Julie, what are you doing here? Surprised Nick, but could not help smiling from this gesture. Inside the woman, everything warmed up. I am always thinking about you, and I decided to ask if you want to be with me, directly asked she. The man was taken by surprise. He suggested moving to a cafe so as not to discuss this on the street in front of the office building. The anticipation weighed heavily on Julie, but she agreed. Nick gallantly pushed back her chair, asked her what she would like to drink. "Okay, I'm just playing for time," admitted Nick. "First of all, I must ask your forgiveness. I behaved terribly. You didn't deserve any of what happened to you. You are honest and sincere. I'm lucky to know you're lucky that you love me. Of course you're not responsible for Jack's death. How not to blame for the fact that I was expelled from school? It was done by completely different people." Julie was moved by everything from his words. She was glad that he was able to let go of past grievances and realized his mistake, so they could start over without looking back at the past. Home. Julie returned late that evening. Adam checked Stacey's lessons and put her to bed himself. The look with which the daughter came did not hide from the man. "When did you introduce us?" he asked with a smile, seeing how instantly embarrassed Julie. "It is too early. We already broke up once. We need time to get used to each other again." It didn't take long for Nick. As soon as he met his beloved again, he realized that he could no longer lose her. Coming to meet Adam, the groom brought a ring with him and, in the circle of his family, proposed to Julie. "You are my only love, my support, my friend. I want to spend the rest of my days with you. You will be my wife," said Nick with excitement in his voice. Adam smiled approvingly. Stacey froze in place, fascinated by what was happening. She was glad that Mom and Uncle Nick were back together. After all, next to him she was so happy. Literally shone. "Daughter, do not pull. Answer already." Adam laughed over the confused daughters. "Yes, yes, of course, yes." Julie threw herself on her lover's neck, and he surrounded her. With triumph, we decided not to delay. After all, there was no doubt about the feelings of the bride and groom. The wedding thundered throughout the city. There were many guests, most of which the newlyweds did not even know. These were respected people in the city who did not receive generous gifts for a young family. Despite the grandiose holiday that Adam organized for his daughter and son-in-law, his main gift was that news about the collapse of Robert's business began to appear in newspapers and social networks. "All his dealing smacks of bad," said the man to Julie. "He got what he deserved for all that he did to you. Such people are unworthy. Nothing good. I can't believe my eyes. How did you do this?" Julie admired, realizing that her father was far from being an ordinary person. Nick, Stacey, and Adam surprisingly easily got along together. Now in the big house, laughter and sincere conversations were constantly heard. Despite the beginning of a new prosperous life, Julie did not forget her old friend Sophie. Grandmother became a frequent visitor to the new house of former neighbors. Adam politely sent a chauffeur-driven car for her to make her commute comfortable, and Sophie always came with hotels.